Hey guys, it's your girl Kizzy Rock, and yes, Kizzy Rock is my birth given name. Happy Friday. Want to say hey to all my subscribers, new as well as season. I got a word for you. Tap in. Happy Friday, guys. Currently driving, so please bear with me and all this background noise. I wanted to share this right quick. I've made a recording on this some time ago, but I had someone to email me. Speaking of emails, if any of you guys have emailed me, and if I have not replied, then there's a chance that your email did not come through, or may have gotten lost in the sauce with the other emails. So please don't allow the enemy to make you think the trauma triggers that someone is ignoring you or abandoning you. If you've sent me an email, if I have not replied, please be sure to hit me up to say, hey, you didn't respond to my email, so I can see if I can look for it, or please resend it. But I wanted to share this really quickly. You often hear people say things like, if that's God, it will be easy. If it's God, there will be no toiling. If it's God, there will be no anxiety. That's from the enemy, because God is peace, God is love, God, right? And that's the absolute truth. But one thing that a lot of people don't talk about, again, is us getting ahead of God. And I can speak on this for a lifetime because I'm that person. Don't judge me, because some of you guys lag behind God, which is just as detrimental, right? But what a lot of people don't speak about is that you getting ahead of God creates anxiety. It creates toil. It creates chaos, and there's no peace. So you will start to think like, I heard God wrong. This is not God, because it shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this, that, and the third. Listen, what God has for you is for you. Don't get it twisted. Some things are going to come smooth as, I don't know, smooth as something. I was about to say something else, but smooth as whatever. Other things are not going to come as smooth. There are going to be some things, especially when it comes down to larger blessings, you're going to have to fight. And that fight can look like different things. That fight can look like standing, right, firm, even though there are different attacks and storms coming against you, but you got to stand. You don't buckle under that pressure. That can look like following God's directions in whatever way that may be. Whatever he's giving you doesn't mean he's giving the next person. Everybody have their own journey, literally. And then some things, which is what I get a lot of emails about, because a lot of us are standing in or waiting for destiny moments, destiny doors to happen, the promise, that type of thing. Well, with the promise, right, really is where ultimately God is, you're going to be destined to be. What the process is all about, the process to transform you, which of course again comes through isolation, the wilderness, things like that. But ultimately, the promised land, destiny, however you deem the term to be, it truly is a process, a long, drawn out process that has so many different seasons within that process. Some of the seasons, you will literally see the hand of God move like never before. It's like he will open certain doors. He will put you in certain rooms. He will introduce you to certain people. Everything that he's promised you, all that stuff is literally just moving along. And then you may hit a halt. Because you hit that halt, it does not mean that you're hearing God wrong. But what happens is when we hit that halt, what do? We want to avoid the halt, and then we want to push through, and we don't want to discern that God is actually halting us. So we start back on the same path, meaning we're ignoring the conviction to hold and be still. So we keep going along and moving along the journey and trying to make things happen. And then what happens? You end up frustrated because you're trying to make things and force things to happen, and then it's not happening. So then you get frustrated and you feel like that could have never been God, because if it's God, it should be peace. Why am I frustrated? Why is there all type of toil? Why is nothing happening? Why is nothing happening? And then you go and you run your mouth, which you shouldn't be doing unless you have clear convictions and confirmations from God to bring a certain person in the whatever promise he's given you. But for a lot of people, well, I can't say that, but sometimes God will literally tell you to close your mouth. Don't tell anybody anything about a certain promise, because he knows when you start to get weary, then you start to go and you start to get advice from people, and then people are giving you wrong advice. Not that they're intentionally doing that, but they're giving you advice based on their own journey, their own life experiences, right? So their promise is not your promise. So you can go and tell them X, Y, and Z, and they're looking at you like you're crazy, like that is not God. God wouldn't such and such, and I wouldn't do that if I were you. But that's their own, but they will do it for the promise that God has given them. So you have to be careful, and I think this is why God tells us sometimes, and God will make it very, very clear to you if he needs you to go and say something. I think like further along during the process, right? Because destiny is way more about you. Purpose is way more bigger than you. So there are times where God will literally tell you, okay, now go get wise counsel. Now say something to this person. But by this time, he's already really built you to the point where you're able to hear his voice clear enough now to know that, okay, now is the time. But if you have not heard God give you an okay to go run your mouth about anything to your own mama, your own daddy, your own dog, your own granny, then you got to hold on to that promise, because when you start hitting these seasons of despair, it can take one person, especially if it's somebody who you admire. It can take one person to literally get into your head, and you will walk away from the very promise that God has given you. See, you got to be, this journey, this is why a lot of the times too, you end up alone for certain seasons. Because God knows if there are certain people around you, he already knows that you're going to get discouraged and things like that. So he's trying to protect you. And I mean, in addition to other reasons why he have to isolate you, but he's trying to protect you. When you hit these droughts and you hit these seasons of delays and things like that, he's trying to protect you. Ooh, child, my dream car is right in front of me. From going and getting wrong counsel, things like that. When you are getting ahead of God, you will feel no peace. When you are getting ahead of God, you're going to be anxiety filled. You're going to have panic attacks. When you're getting ahead of God, there's going to be a lot of toiling, a lot of frustration, all that stuff that will really make you feel like whatever promise that you're on the way to, it was never God, it was familiar spirits, and you're on the wrong path, and God promised me this, now I got to go back to the drawing board. No, sometimes you got, and I'm not saying this is not for everybody, right? Because some people may be on the wrong path, I don't know. But I'm speaking to those of you who know that you know, like this thing won't leave you. You've tried to leave it. It won't leave you. But you're hitting these certain seasons of delays for different reasons, and you're now getting to the point that you're ready to walk away from them because it's been years now, for some of you decades, or some even longer, and you can't understand why things are getting more difficult than easy. Well, before major breakthroughs, things get more difficult because, for one, that's the enemy, right? Because this is the pivotal time for him to get you to walk away from a promise. So what, 6 years ago, he wasn't on you that hard because you were nowhere close to the promise. But now he knows that you're close to the promise, And he's really hitting people in different areas. Many people are in the darkest season of their lives. There are people who are so discouraged. There are people who are going through financial issues. There are people who are going through marital issues. There are people who are going through major depression. There are people going through the most dark time of their lives. And again, from my experience, some of my major breakthroughs and blessings, there was a season of despair prior to the breakthrough. You have to literally gruff this thing through. Like with some blessings, it's just not going to be handed to you, right? God made you the promise. God says it's yours, but certain blessings is just not going to come in and be delivered by the mail guy and ring the doorbell and say, here you are. Granted, certain blessings come like that, but there are going to be certain blessings, honey. You're going to have some receding hairlines. You're going to have some edges gone. You're going to have some, listen, you got to gruff this thing out. You got to gruff it out. You got to gruff it out. So my main thing with this recording was to truly tell people, and I can speak on this for myself because I've had blessings to manifest through God. I was just in an alignment to receive it. But I've had blessings that have been released to me, and if I would have listened to people saying that, well, if it's from God, it wouldn't be this stressful. If it wasn't from God, it would be more peaceful. It wouldn't be all this toil. It wouldn't be all these delays and all these hardships. No. And if I didn't know that I know when I hear or I feel the prompting in my spirit about something, I would have truly listened. But God have always just blessed me to be aware of a certain prompting within my spirit, that regardless of what anybody in the flesh say to me or tell me, I can never, ever, ever override that feeling that's in my spirit. Again, this is how you know, right? When you're trying to make things happen from the flesh, meaning you have created some kind of narrative. You want that particular husband. You want that particular wife. This is all you now, right? This is what you want. You've created this narrative, and then you kind of want to sprinkle some God in there to say, well, this is a promise that God gave me, right? That's a whole different ballgame. And you will literally be on a hamster wheel for the rest of your life. And you may get what you want, but it's not going to be what you want. And then you're going to have to maintain that thing on your own because that was never from God. I'm speaking about when God has given you a promise. This is not something that you concocted. It just dropped in your spirit, and it has never left your spirit. And you've seen fruit along the journey, right? You see, you're going to have a season or some seasons where you literally see fruit. That's God who is alerting you like, okay, I know you're getting frustrated. Okay, it's not time for it yet, but to keep you grounded, to keep you on this journey, I'm going to allow a season where you see things start to move. That's how you know it's God. But then you're going to hit a block, and that block can be for different reasons. Maybe you're not being obedient to the things that because he's going to tell you things that you have to do and you can no longer do before this promise manifests. So you may hit a season because you're making your head hard. You may hit a season of delay because the other side is making their head hard. There's so many different things. You might hit a season of delay because now things are dangerous and God have to kind of get some things in order. There's so many different reasons on why you can hit these seasons of delays, right? But you got to be so tapped in to know. And sometimes it's come with trial and error. For me, definitely it's trial and error. Some people are great. I'm better. I'm a lot better where when I feel the conviction to halt, I'll halt, right? Where before I can feel the conviction to halt, but I'm gonna act like I didn't really feel it like that, right? And then I'm gonna kind of go ahead of God and kind of feel like, okay, God, I think you told me I can take a step, and then boom, right? You bump your head, and then you're looking like a fool somewhere, or blase, and God is just like, He's waiting for you to get back in alignment, right? Just get back in alignment and be still. He's not going to judge you on it. He's just going. It's a whole learning process, right? What's in my spirit now is those of you who you feel a conviction to take the step, and you're not taking that step. you're just as wrong as us who get ahead of God, right? So if you feel the conviction to take the step, take this step. Don't worry. If it's not from God, the door will not open. He will just send you back in alignment with the rest of us, right? But you are better off taking the step. This is if you really, really believe truly that you heard from God. You will be better off taking the step because God knows your intentions. So if that step is wrong, he will literally get you back where you're supposed to be. But I personally feel like you're better taking the step, all caps, if you believe you've heard from God versus not taking the step and lagging behind God. But please understand that if you're getting ahead of God, and you know it because, God will convict you about certain things and you're still just trying to, and then you're starting to toil and please don't feel like you heard God wrong. Please don't feel like you've heard God wrong. Again, this is for the people who know that you know that you know. It's your girl, Kizzy Rock.